Hello, 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 and welcome back to an all-new episode here on the Desensitized channel. As always, my name is Darius Cook, and today I am so excited to talk about what we have. We are talking about Arcane. At the time of this recording, Arcane Season 2 is coming up very soon. It should be releasing on Netflix in just a few days. And so in anticipation of that, I decided to rewatch Season 1 of Arcane to get ready for all that Arcane greatness. Now, I did already review Arcane, and that is on the Darius Show podcast. You can find that on Spotify or anywhere else that you get your podcasts. That is a solo review series where I talk about shows, movies, and other topics that stick out to me. So you can consider this an extension of that. So if you want to get my full breakdown and review of Arcane in general, you can go to that podcast to check it out. But today, I want to discuss my major takeaways from rewatching Season 1. It's been a few years since Season 1 came out, so I have kind of some new perspective on things. And more than that, I want to break down my top 5 predictions for what is going to happen in Arcane Season 2. What can we expect out of this crazy series? And yeah, without further ado, let's just get right into it. For starters, just to get into a general discussion, one of my coming into this rewatch, one of the main questions that I had on my mind, because I didn't remember every detail, was, is Jinx redeemable? Is Powder, Jinx, whatever you want to call her, is there room in the narrative for her to be redeemed moving forward? Of course, she does a lot of terrible things, but we, the audience, know that she, isn't in a healthy mind state and is being actively manipulated by Silco to do it, our big bad. And so, as you're watching, you alongside Vi, the viewer and Vi, are deciding, is there room for Jinx to become Powder again, or is she just too far gone? Are the decisions that she's made at this point too over the line, and we just have to look at her as a villain that needs to be taken down? On this rewatch, I was feeling very optimistic for Jinx to come around. I think you as the viewer are really rooting for her to change the era of her ways and kind of embrace Vi again. But on this rewatch, knowing everything that I knew and then watching it through this lens, I don't think that Jinx is redeemable. That was going to be my first prediction, was whether or not I thought that Jinx would be redeemable. But unfortunately, my first prediction on this top 5 list is going to be that Jinx will not have a redemption arc. I think that there might be a moment of self-sacrifice where maybe she kills herself in order to help others around at the end of the series. I think that would be the closest thing to a redemption that we would get. But overall, as identified in the final scenes of Season 1, where Jinx chooses to sit in the Jinx chair. She has the Jinx chair and the Powder chair. And in that scene, she's actively choosing which identity that she is going to stick with moving forward. And she chooses Jinx, and then she does that irredeemable act of shooting the High Council room. And so I think that the end of the series, we're going to have to see Vi versus Jinx in a climactic way. I don't know if my heart could handle Vi killing Jinx, actually. I think Vi's gone through too much to have to make that choice. But I think that is what we're going to be playing with. So yeah, my first prediction is that Jinx will not be redeemed. And if she is redeemed, it's going to be in a self-sacrifice kind of way. Of course, I didn't think that about Silco. One of my major takeaways on this rewatch is just, the gray area that exists around Silco. Of course, he's our main villain. I mean, you can't argue that Silco is the main villain. He does terrible things, and he's the main reason for all the conflict in the series. However, the show goes out of their way to exemplify that, since he essentially adopted Powder, adopted who would become Jinx, even though he's the one that killed Vander in the first place, that he, over time, was able to learn to love, and he got that soft spot. You saw that his operations actually started to fall apart because he was unable to put the criminal obligations over who he saw as his daughter, Jinx. Which is exactly what Vander was doing when Silco decided to kill him. He thought that Vander had gone soft. He's not a fighter anymore. He cares about these kids too much. But Silco comes full circle, and then he becomes that same problem that he was fighting against at the beginning of the series. Yeah, this series has no black and white. There's only gray area in this series, and I think that they do a great job of fleshing out every character's point of view, so that way you can feel compelled in whatever decision that they make. And there never feels like a right one. And everything people do in the series never feels right or wrong. It's just right there in that gray area, which is no better exemplified by the Silco character. Rest in peace. All right, on a lighter note, on to my second prediction of Arcane Season 2. I believe that Vi and Caitlyn need to kiss. I don't know how it's going to happen. I love this relationship so much. The first time that I watched the series, that wasn't so much on my radar. Of course, I knew that they were kind of building that out, but Caitlyn wasn't a character that I felt very compelled by in Season 1, at least on my first watch through. I don't know why, but second time around, it's been a few years. I'm a little older, I'm a little wiser, and I think the Caitlyn character has so much interesting, meaty bits to think about. I found her so compelling, and the potential romance between her and Vi that seems to slowly be building, I am so here for it. There's a couple little romances that are built out throughout the series, but none as strong as this potential romance. And I just hope that the show goes all the way forward with it. I think that the series has great representation, and I think there's some implied LGBT plus characters within the series. But Vi and Caitlyn are the closest to that. Every time that Vi calls Caitlyn Cupcake, I get flitters on my heart. I need these characters to kiss. I need them to become Facebook official in Season 2. And that's why that is my second prediction. I think that Sevika, I think that's how you say her name. She's Silco's right-hand man, and she had a grudge match between Vi. I appreciate in the final episode of Season 1 that we got this huge grudge match. It was like round 3 between Vi and Sevika. We see them coming to blows. We see them butting heads. They're two very powerful women. This show loves their powerful women, and I love it as well. But we see them go into blows multiple times throughout the series. And in the final episode of Season 1, we see their final battle, essentially. I mean, I'm sure they might fight again in the future, but it felt like this was the match to settle the score between these characters. And one thing that I love is that I think overall that this series doesn't have wasted moments. Even when it's action, I think that the series is putting heart over the action, so that way what's really driving the narrative is the conflict between the characters, not the physical action, which is dynamic and well choreographed. It's one of the things I love about the series. It's not what the first foot that they're putting forward in the series at all given times is narrative, except for when it's Vi versus Sevika in that final episode of Season 1. This moment has no narrative payoff whatsoever. It doesn't set the characters up to take any new choices or anything like that. This is just Vi's pissed. She's got some new big loves to fight with, and she wants to go settle the score with Sevika. And it was such a satisfying moment. It was just beef for beef's sake. I'm hoping that we see more moments like this in the next season, because this is announced to be the final season. So I think that we're going to get a lot of finalized moments. Potential beef moments that we could see. Obviously, Vi versus Jinx. I think narratively that would have a lot of payoff. I want to see Echo fighting some more. Echo had some amazing moments in Season 1, and I want to see Echo go face-to-face with Jinx again. I think that there was a very compelling moment where they saw each other as the young kids that they used to be. In a lot of ways, they're the same version of each other. One just got corrupted in this way. But they were characters in their youth that were in the same position, essentially. But I also think it would be fun to see Echo go up against Jace. We see at the end of Season 1 that Heimerdinger is starting to maybe take on this mentory role with Echo. Obviously, Heimerdinger previously had that mentory role for Jace, but they've gone in different directions at this point. And so it'd be interesting to see Heimerdinger maybe bring up this more pure character like Echo, and building Echo up to a point where he can stand toe-to-toe with Jace, I think would be a super interesting interaction. We also could see a match between Jace and Vi at some point. That is set up during Season 1. We see them almost have a fight, but then they both walk away from it. And so I think that, they're kind of teasing us to expect another fight or conflict between those two characters. My fourth prediction about what's going to happen in Arcane Season 2 is I just want to see some significant payoff for the Heimerdinger character. He has been an interesting one because he's been present throughout the entire series. From episode 1, we're getting his perspective a lot of the time. We know that he's lived longer than anyone. He's the oldest living character that we know on screen with like 300 plus years. He's seen hex tech be used in a wrong way in the past, and that's been hinted at. And I actually am expecting that we will get flashbacks from his perspective now that he's working with Echo. Maybe this is a fresh audience for him to share some of his perspective and knowledge that he's gained over the years. We see him cautioning against using some of this technology because he's seen it used in terrible ways, but we don't know to what extent. And I think that would be really fun to dive more into the Heimerdinger character, because we've gotten a good amount of him and we've got him teased, but I don't think that he's been as impactful as he probably will be. My final prediction for Arcane Season 2 is who is going to be taking Silco's place. I think that, we take the events that ended the season and it's Jinx launching a full-scale attack on Piltover, and so it might be a natural conclusion to think that maybe Jinx would step into that role, but she's still pretty young, and I don't think that, we're setting up a full-blown war between Piltover and the Undertown at this point, and so I think that somebody needs to step into that place. We have established, this rotating cast of, other big bosses within the underground world that communicate with Silco. The one Asian gentleman with the, steampunk jaw that moves strikes out as the person who's being set up to take that position. But what I actually think is going to happen is he will be the first person to try to step into that place, and either Jinx or Sevika will step in, and in the early episodes, it'll be like a mini boss for them to take over and establish themselves as the new power, filling in that void that Silco's leaving. Right now, there's no clear answer for someone who can take the place of Silco and be as compelling. I don't think that Jinx or Sevika are ready to be in that role, but I think, if we split the season up like they did in season 1, we have multiple arc points in terms of the timeline, I think that we could see a very compelling mini arc of either one of them or even them working together to fill in that void. I also don't necessarily think that he's dead. We definitely see the moment where he gets killed off, but I don't think it would be the craziest thing that the show has done to somehow bring Silco back. It's like this series has set up so many interesting character arcs in terms of what is going to happen moving forward, but narratively, they really haven't teased, I can't guess what is going to happen, even though we have 10 different characters whose character arcs are fully motivated at this point. Me as a viewer, I know what everybody wants, but with the big question mark of this attack that Jinx launched on Piltover's big heads, it's really left me reeling as a viewer in terms of guessing what's going to happen. These predictions, I have no doubt in my mind, will maybe become somewhat close, but probably will be far off from the final product that we get. And I think that's what's so great about the writing of Arcane, is they do such a good job of you feeling like you know what each character's motivation is and you fully grasp their character arc, but that doesn't mean that you know how the pieces are going to move forward. They have set up such a rich world here, and for someone like me who does not play League of Legends at all, I'm barely aware of it, can feel so immersed into this world and feel like such a fan, and I feel like I understand how the world works. I'm rambling at this point, but an extra prediction freebie is that we're going to see the introduction of this character called Dunkmaster Darius. I have no idea who he is. I'm not a fan of the League of Legends games, but of course my name is Darius, so I've heard that this is a character from League of Legends. That's my sneaky prediction. We're going to see some Dunkmaster Darius representation. I want to hear my name on the Arcane screen, so hopefully we get that in this coming season as well. But that's about going to bring this to a close, guys. Arcane is coming out. By the time I post this, it'll be coming out any day now. So let me know in the comments, do you have any predictions? Are my predictions just garbage? Do you think that I'm dead wrong, or do you think I'm right? I'm kind of a genius, so I'm struggling to get some of this right. But you let me know how I did in the comments, and if you're watching this later, feel free to roast me in the comments as well. But yeah, hopefully you're as excited for Arcane as I am. I've been waiting for the season for a long time. Hopefully you can sense my joy. And if you're watching this, stay tuned for the main Desensitized podcast. Me and my buddy Cass will for sure be breaking this season down. So you're definitely going to want to hear his perspective as a big fan and a player of the League of Legends games as well. But for now, that's going to bring us to a close. Again, if you want more Arcane greatness, check out the Darius Show podcast where I broke down season 1 through multiple episodes. But for now, that's going to bring it to a close. Peace out, and remember that I love you.